Yo, welcome back to Containing Luxury. On this episode, we're going to be discussing why shipping container homes are overrated. Let's get started.
The other is that if you want affordable housing, container homes are the answer, according to this and this and this and this. So is it true?
No.
Okay, so Ryan came up with this genius idea that he's like, hey Blake, you need to watch this video on why shipping container homes are overrated and kind of discuss what you find in it. And I was like, all right, let's make it happen. So I'm watching this for the first time right now, and we're gonna, in real time, figure out what I like, what I don't like, what's a good point, what's a bad point, maybe rebut some of these. Rebut, is that a word? Blake speak good. You know, for a high school dropout, I'm not a high school dropout, I'm a college dropout. Dang it, I'm not nearly as cool as I wanna be. All right, anyway, I'm gonna be going through this with you guys live, and we're gonna see what we can figure out. Let's get started.
I brought some food props to make some elaborate shipping container models out of graham crackers, which my editor was skeptical that I could pull off, but I told her that I used to have a graham cracker addiction. So, foolproof. And then I got to my house. No, the one behind that one. After I bonded with other guests, owner Michael pulled up, who built this development with a tiny house, another shipping container, and my house.
It's your home for tonight.
Were you nervous cutting such a big hole?
Well, I really believe in my team. You know, again, they will tell me if they believe they can't do it.
Yeah.
And, you know, to really
All right, so right off the bat, the very first thing I'm seeing is definitely looks either DIY or not the most skilled contractor on the planet. Like before we even get any further, I can tell right by the foundation, some of the way they bent some of the metal for the siding, the condition of the container, the paint choices, the garage door hardware, the entry door. I mean, right off the bat, I'm like, this is either low budget or somebody tried to do this themselves and they don't have, they're handy, but not skilled like GC level. So let's keep going.
you know, to really re-emphasize, this is considered a real house.
Later on, propped up against the house, I found the cut out pieces of my actual container.
So what do you know? He's showing the metal now, and I could tell right away they used a very beat up shipping container. When you look at the condition of the steel that they have, that they cut out of that thing, I mean, it looks like it was in a demolition derby. So they, right from step one, they cut corners using a really rough condition shipping container, which is setting off the course of the build right there.
Container. That is very cool. Can you actually see some of the original printing from the container? That creativity is the promise of shipping containers, which I was gonna demo with my graham
looks
crackers, and it started out great.
Look, I did it.
All right. Yo, this for real looks like he's done. I didn't see the inside until just now. This is like just a completely raw container on the inside with like a thrift store furniture package. So, yeah, okay. Not exactly luxury on the inside, which the outside actually I think looks better than the inside.
But,
No. You were right.
Yeah.
here are the supposed pros behind the shipping container home. It's standardized. This one's 40 by 8, 320 square feet. That means they're stackable. They can be modified with a simple cut through the steel, and you can just crane them anywhere. They're also super strong because these things are made to carry stuff in big stacks across the ocean. And best of all, you can get them super cheap because containers are everywhere.
Okay, pros? Yep, absolutely. Great job checking off the boxes. I'm not gonna say cheap, I'm gonna say good value. So when you compare what I can build a similar strength structure for of equal size, it is definitely good value. as long as I'm buying high quality containers. So theirs was cheap. So number 4 on their pros, they obviously did choose a very cheap container. I buy more value, higher quality at a good price point. So that's something to consider.
It's still raining a bit, but I'm totally hyped up on sugar now. So I thought I'd give you some reflections on my first night in the shipping container. It's pretty interesting. Like, I definitely don't notice.
For the record, John from Blackout Coffee, don't kill me. This is Blackout Coffee in a Dunkin' cup. I didn't have my coffee mug today, but I had a leftover cup that I didn't go to Dunkin'. But if you want to support Blackout Coffee, link in the description. Love you, John.
It's the size element. I don't feel constrained by that at all. And the way that Michael made the bathroom large makes it pretty easy to get comfortable. There's this lock on the garage door that you kind of click shut. Makes it feel like a panic room, which I actually like because it makes me feel like I'm important. It's like a good hotel room with a real like.
All right, let's talk about garage doors, because you're going to see these on some builds. Some of our buddies who build container homes offer garage door options. I've personally always stayed away from it because they do not seal properly. So you're going to have heat loss or cooling loss at those locations. And, you know, bugs, lizards, for our standardized building process, they just don't fit into the equation for what we're trying to do. Nothing against them. I think they look really cool. And if it's not like a primary residence and it's kind of like an art piece and a cool feature, absolutely, it looks really cool, the glass garage door going on the side. Now, functionality of like livability, I'm not sure it's very good for every day. Like, I really want this thing to be super energy efficient and super strong. There's gaps. You look at your garage door at your house, they don't seal properly. So cool feature, more novelty than function.
Like creative touch to it. I'm gonna go to sleep now. But something that cool isn't necessarily practical or easy. Before I partied all night long in Warrenton, North Carolina. I'm just gonna eat this bad boy. I talked to 2 people about whether shipping containers are practical, affordable housing, or if they're kinda overrated. One is Belinda Carr, an architect who has a YouTube channel that racks up huge views for videos about stuff like insulation, and actually went viral with a video that wasn't super positive about shipping containers. And I talked to Mark Hogan, an architect who wrote an article 7 years ago about shipping containers and is still part of the big debate.
There's no debate. I mean, they're garbage. It was a very old argument.
I'm not gonna lie. A lot of the container homes on the market are garbage. Like, that's a fact. I mean, I look at most of the construction I see today in general, and it's kind of garbage. And I mean, you can't make a blanket statement of like, that product is garbage or that entire industry is garbage. I think there's garbage cars. I think there's garbage houses. I think there's garbage, any company that you want to find. There are high quality companies and there are garbage companies. You know, so I think it's pretty ignorant to make a blanket statement of saying container homes are garbage, because I can find you a ton of examples of people that spent a lot of money with very high skilled labor and built beautiful, amazing structures that are insanely strong and energy efficient. So it's coming from a very ignorant place to make a blanket statement of like, all of this entire product line is garbage, because it's, at the end of the day, it's construction. I'm building a house out of this vessel instead of this vessel. You take a skilled contractor, you know, we used to build for Prada, and we're gonna make something, obviously, a lot more quality than somebody that's like, I DIY, I don't have a bunch of construction experience and my budget is limited. Like, yeah, of course, you're gonna have something that's a completely different level of finishes. So, listening to people like this, I'm like, dude, I could probably walk through your house and find 25 things where I'm like, dude, your house is garbage, you know? It's a level of statement coming from ignorance, because just not understanding that it's the quality of the contractor that determines the quality of the product.
When I wrote the article, and it just, someone keeps recycling it every 6 months, you know.
It comes from me in architecture school. And almost every year they were pushing this idea of modularity. The idea that each part of a home could be a different box, and you could just switch out the box if you wanted to expand the home. And we were kind of brainwashed in that sense, like everyone, I'm talking about everyone in architecture school.
Yeah.
And then I got out into the real world and I started like diving into building science, how things are constructed, not just how things look, but how they function. Slowly, this argument about modular shipping container construction fell apart.
So I agree with them actually on that. I've said this, and a lot of people didn't like me for saying it, but I'm a realist because I'm a general contractor at the end of the day. I build with all different types of materials. And I do not think shipping containers are the solution end all be all to housing. I think that they fit a specific parameter in the housing market, which is what we design and build them for. I do not think that stacking and connecting a lot of containers, and you can go back through this, years of video footage that I've said this same statement over and over again since day one. I do not believe that stacking a bunch of containers or building multi-container structures is a feasible, or it's feasible. It's not a efficient use of that building structure. We specifically design single unit, small energy efficient products because it's the best use of that vessel. Once you get into stacking a ton of these together and the amount of structural engineering required, cutting, welding, fabrication, this is where I like the fact that being a general contractor, I can build out, here's my quote for using shipping containers, here's conventional construction, and I'm building the same project in 2 different platforms. And there becomes that point when standard construction or typical construction specifications are actually more useful and more cost effective than using shipping containers. And I figured that out very early on, which is why I'm like, nope, I don't get into multi-constructor builds. I can build you that in a different manner, probably more cost effective. There are other modular products out there that I actually prefer when getting into those multi-structures. I think the way we're using containers is the best way to use containers. So I do agree with them on that aspect.
It's an interesting look, and it appeals to people because it seems logical. And as long as you don't think about it for more than 5 minutes.
One of the first things you see with these houses is the stacking.
The way containers work is they have these 4 major structural points in the ends of the container. They're supposed to bear most of the weight on those 4 footings. So when you see them on a ship out in the ocean, they're all stacked vertically.
First of all, they bear all of the weight on those 4 footings. Because the container, when it's sitting on the ground, or like we can show around the showroom, it's not touching anywhere other than those 4 points. So this is something which, when we got into looking at structure of stacking, and people get into, I want to cantilever these things and do all this, instantly, this is gonna be another point, I agree with them, is that it doesn't make sense. This goes back to that multiple container builds. They need to be on all 4 corners directly going up. But if you do that, it's not gonna be a very aesthetically pleasing build, but there's no other product out there that you can take and immediately just stack and lock them together and go up to 10 high. And you look at the specs on a shipping container, it can hold up to, I think it's in excess or just below 500,000 pounds on top of it. Like, that's insane. So if you're going straight up, you need like affordable housing, you need disaster housing, boom, this is a solution. Building a super cool, apartment complex, maybe not. Not if you want to be cantilevering or doing anything like that. Okay, so on that note, we are officially live on Start Engine. So if you want to become a co-owner in Containing Luxury, make sure to invest. There's going to be a link in the description. I'm sure he won't or she won't, but you guys can. So make sure to help us get this product out there and join with the wins with us as a co-owner in Containing Luxury. All right, back to the video.
Once you start offsetting it or turning it at an angle, no other part of the container is truly structural or can bear the weight of the container, so you have to reinforce it.
The same goes for cool windows and doors and garages. When you cut a hole,
the same on a house.
You have to reinforce.
The container itself is made at a very thin.
Any method of construction, you have to reinforce every opening. So that's not any more or less work. That's the cantilevering, 100% correct. Reinforcing windows and doors. Look at any new construction house going up. Concrete houses have lintels going across. every single opening, sometimes even poured, super time consuming, very expensive. You look at any wood house, sometimes they have steel I-beams spanning across the openings to help carry that load. So that's any opening, any type of construction requires reinforcement.
Thin, flimsy metal, but because of the geometry and the corrugations, it basically functions as a box beam that makes it stronger, which is why you can lift it up with a crane and put it onto a ship. As soon as you start cutting holes in it, it no longer functions structurally as a beam anymore.
That is correct.
If you are able to get labor,
I do see a lot of people that make the modifications incorrect because the corrugation is structural. So when you make modifications to that corrugation, you need to do the the structural calculations to make sure that every opening we cut, we ensure it's actually stronger than before we made that modification. Some people cut blanket openings and stuff, and it actually did reduce the structural integrity. So that's why it's very imperative to go with a quality builder who understands exactly what they're doing with these. Because I can tell you from somebody that had a ton of construction experience, I mean, we were known for being the contractor that huge companies would come to figure out crazy things that they wanted, like marble suspended from ceilings, and we were able to do that. And I personally made so many mistakes building my first 10 containers of figuring out like, oh, I would have never expected that acted in that way, or man, I didn't think about how that deflection occurred when I modified that opening. There was so much of a learning process, and any good company should be evolving every single day, and that's what we are. Every day we learn something that makes us better, stronger, faster. So a lot of this stuff comes down to experience as well.
for all that to a remote location, you'll still need to build a foundation for your container to clear building codes and be stable. That could mean a slab or piers, and then it's stuck there. And you need utilities too.
So this is actually with a real foundation, and it's concrete piers.
So it's not stuck there. So you need a foundation for any home. So let's talk about just the foundation cost. In a proper application for people who actually design container homes and they can do the structural calculations, in most cases, the foundation of a container home used in a proper setting, not multi-structures, but a single container home, the foundation plan is probably going to cost you between 30 and 50% of what a conventional build would cost to have a similar square footage. So it is definitely a major cost savings on the foundation side because all you need is piers. You do not need an entire slab, which also adds non-permeable surface to that area, which can increase the amount of water diversion or retainage that you need on that property. So there are definitely major benefits to the foundations required with a container, if done properly.
And then we welded the shipping container onto the
and then
piers
it can
themselves.
be moved. So you don't need to weld the container. There's all different bolts that can be bolted to it. So 20 years down the road, you decide some big investment firm comes in, they want to buy your land. You can pick that container up with a crane, all different ways. We do this all the time. And you could load that thing on a truck, and because these are so strong, when you're really comparing it to a mobile home is its nearest relative. But that mobile home after 10, 15 years, 20 years is going to be rotted out. You can't crane that thing. It's going to twist. Everything's going to be destroyed inside. The structural integrity is virtually non-existent after that time period. I believe they're advertised as only having like a 15-year lifespan. Whereas the shipping container is obviously a much stronger. It's like a tank in a Kia. So that container can be hoisted up, loaded at any point down the road, loaded onto a truck, driven down the road, and reset into another. So that's actually one of the pros, is that it can be moved at any point.
Container onto the piers themselves. So this is actually considered a house on a very small scale.
Modular design is great, but to make it livable, you have to add expensive and pretty permanent insulation.
So we took a shipping container, we did
Every house has insulation on the exterior walls. So that's not any different than any other home. Most of the time on new construction homes, they're all getting spray foam. So it's comparable, it's the same process. Honestly, this comes from inexperience. You're building a home exactly the same. Everything that's inside of one of our 40-foot shipping container models is the exact same finishes that are inside of a home. I just didn't have to frame the exterior. That's the only difference. So I bought the exterior and then I built a residential home inside of it. So there is no cost savings on that. There is no added expenditure to that. It's actually, it breaks down to about the same for the finishings of the entire interior. But where we do save money because we can mass produce it inside of a factory where you're not dealing with outdoor elements. So in most cases, yes, on a one-time build, it would cost more to build a container home. Like as a general contractor, if somebody came to me and said, hey, I want you to build this for me, chances are I'm gonna charge way more than what I can sell the product for because we build it inside of a controlled environment, mass production scale. That's the only way I can make these affordable, which then takes that cheap, it's not cheap, it's good value, and it actually adds that to a pro. In a one-off basis, yes, it is a con.
Did spray and installation, and then we put the tin over that installation. That's how we did it. And then it met the code requirements.
The thing that I responded to in the article was the idea that it was a solution to building low-cost housing, which is usually what it's presented as, and it's clearly not that.
The overall project's not very expensive for a house, but per square footage, it adds up.
Okay, so if shipping containers are so bad, why are they still a trend? I came to the conclusion that as affordable modular housing, they're wildly overrated, but as cool, fun things to stay in and to design, they work. Also, I went on Getty Images, and yeah, shipping container housing for Ukrainian refugees is a thing. It definitely makes sense for temporary, really fast housing. But as an environmental or affordable housing solution, the next morning I had breakfast.
I slept well. I mean, I felt very safe because I've literally seen all the entrances and exits hanging against a wall. It was go to sleep and take a really nice shower. They had a double shower and heated floors. Get some jam on here.
I finished my graham cracker nachos and packed up.
I mean, it's funny that they have heated floors in this thing. You look at the finishes on the inside, you're like, what?
Searched for a song that was bittersweet.
Could have spent a little bit more money making it look a little nicer. I mean, come on, this is like the ugliest shipping container home you could have possibly stayed in, next to like an abandoned house. Like, there's a little bias on judging the entire container home industry off of this product. Maybe come look at a reputable builder before
Ever met anyone
making
who
blanket
built something
statements.
out of shipping containers who said they would do it again? The obsession, I think.
So funny story. I actually said that the first time I built a shipping container home. I was like, this is a waste of my time. And it is. It is a massive waste of time for every general contractor out there because there's a huge learning curve. It takes a long time and a lot of money to get into this industry. And to make it worth your time, you have to find a problem and focus, laser focus on providing a solution to that. And that requires a ton of R&D. Most of the statements they're making this are valid, and I crossed those once upon a time. But through R&D and product development, we have actually taken a lot of the cons and we've actually turned them into pros. But yes, in most people's case, from a 5-minute overview of the industry as a blanket statement, 100%. Everything they're saying is generally true. It's not true for everyone.
The obsession, I think, is that people think they've come up with a workaround, and it's like, and then they don't want to be proven wrong, and so they just dig deeper and deeper into this hole.
I think humans have this obsession with modularity. It's this vision people have in their head of, oh, if I want to grow my home or if I want a larger bathroom, I can switch out this container and bring in another container. And the idea that if my home wants to grow, I can add in 2 more containers and it can grow that way.
How did you feel when you first saw them
Yeah, that is not a good
on
way
the
to
site?
There was a sense of excitement, but then I looked at my bank account and I was immediately disappointed because I realized it's going to be really a challenge. And you have to be a little bit naive and arrogant to do something like this because it is a lot more work and money than you initially expect.
I think that's
Warrenton, North Carolina
generally
is a
true
tiny town, but
about every real estate deal you've ever invested in. People have unrealistic budgets with every house they flip, with every house they buy. When they get into renovation budgets, even general contractors are guilty of it. You know, they think it's going to go smoother, faster, better, easier, and you always run into headaches. And I mean, I think that you talk to any real estate investor, they will tell you the same thing on pretty much every project they've ever done. Man, it costs more than I thought it was going to do. That's why we always try to go over what's your budget for this? Is it even realistic, starting point? And do you have money available for contingencies that may or may not happen throughout that build? But that's everything. That's all real estate investment.
it's a tiny town, but it's known for the revival Greek and Roman architecture they built. It's kind of artificial. Car. In the same way that shipping containers are a form, but they aren't necessarily practical to live in. All these columns don't make it easier or more functional, but they did connect the people of Warrenton to a cultural legacy that existed, and that's kind of what we're doing with shipping containers too. I mean, we live with stuff that is moved around in these things all the time, so why not occasionally expose them to our daily lives? It might not be practical to live in them, but it might be meaningful, even if it's not as easy as it seems.
Might not be practical to live in them, but it might be meaningful. I don't know. I just build things, but I think it is practical because a lot of people, we have to think about the markets that we're building these for. And I actually just had a meeting a couple months ago with a really, really poor community. And the politicians from that community immediately got off on, well, we don't want shipping containers in our community. We want 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom houses built out here. And I had to lay down the honesty with them that I was like, I'm sorry guys, I jumped on Google this morning. There are no grocery stores in this area. There are no gas stations. There's no housing. People are literally living in falling down structures. There's 20 families living in an apartment building sharing one kitchen, and you're talking to me about wants. When there's a reality that a lot of the public and a lot of Americans today are not living on a want basis. They're living on a need basis. So if we can provide super energy efficient, insanely strong housing, whether it's temporary or not, that's what we're gonna focus on doing because we're focusing on the people. It's funny, we have people that fly in on private jets that wanna buy one of these because of the luxury factor. But then we have a lot of people that are like, this is my dream. I would love to live in one of these because I can afford it. And that's where our mission is with our company. And, we're focused on mass production, affordability, strength, all the things that they pretty much said weren't feasible. That's what we're accomplishing on a daily basis. We're not interested in the custom homes. I have a construction firm that can build the custom homes. We're interested in getting high quality product into people's hands for transitional housing, for starter homes, for 55 plus communities, to get people out of mobile home parks and into energy efficient, modular housing programs that can be temporary or permanent. It can be anything you want it to be because it has that versatility. So on that note, if you guys want to grow with us and be part of our campaign of getting this product out there, make sure to check the link in the description. We're live on Start Engine. You could be a co-owner in this company for only $3.99. Make sure to help us build our network that's really putting safe, energy efficient product into people's hands that need it and those who want it. So from Containing Luxury, if I can remember the name of our company, and hey, you know what? I will say, well-produced video. Well done on that. A lot of their points were valid, and I think they do make sense, and a lot of the stuff that people bring up to us, but it's not for everyone. It's not, if you do it right, you can solve those problems too, and I think that comes across in everything. I think there's a lot of good modular home companies out there building really high quality products, and I think there's also horrible ones. So I've seen them, and And I think it just comes down to the quality of the person that you're hiring and that's leading the company. So thank you guys, Containing Luxury, and our judgment is over with. We out.